I'm particularly honored to be here today and to welcome and introduce some of our speakers for tonight's theme, We the People, Becoming American. Every single person in this room has a different American story. And those stories are shaped by our individual and our collective experiences. And those experiences form our truth, our personal truths of what it means to be an American. My own American story started with riding my bicycle around Boise, Idaho, and discovering all the freedom and opportunities my bicycle could connect me to right here in my hometown. Eventually, that bicycle took me to the Boise Bicycle Project, a nonprofit I created in 2005, where I was introduced to our refugee community for the very first time. Before I started the Boise Bicycle Project, I thought I knew my community well. But soon I was introduced to thousands of people from all around the world with all sorts of different experiences living right here in Boise, my hometown. And I realized that my understanding of Boise and my understanding of America was incomplete. Through all those experiences, I had the opportunity to grow with and become friends with people that I never would have thought that I would have met in my entire life. People from all around the world, all sorts of different languages. And even today I teach out at CWI, and on a regular classroom day, I have 16 different languages represented in my classroom. And when I'm teaching my students, they're learning from me, they're learning from each other, I'm learning from them, and all collectively we're growing, and we're growing stronger. Several years ago, I'm glad this photo is up. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to be part of a citizenship swearing-in ceremony. Has anybody ever been to one of these ceremonies? The most patriotic feeling I've ever felt before in my entire life was watching new Americans take their oath, some of them who had gotten bikes from the Boise Bicycle Project when they first arrived as refugees, tears coming down their eyes, tears coming down their families' eyes, and certainly tears coming down my own as they became citizens of the United States of America. Each of us, our stories are different. Many in this room, we were born as Americans. So we inherited our citizenships and the freedoms and the opportunities that our country was founded upon. Tonight, we have the unbelievable opportunity to hear stories from people who became Americans after arriving here as refugees. And their stories are certainly unique. The challenges that they've overcome, the obstacles that they've pushed through, all the things that they've done to take care of themselves and their families is different than my own story. And I would encourage you tonight to reflect on and lean into those differences, to listen to the truths that they're bringing forward and allow that to expand your own truth of what it means to be a Boisean, of what it means to be an American. And I would also challenge you to find our common story, grounded in self-determination, grounded in love, in joy, in hope, in prosperity for one's family, all these things that, to me, make up the American dream. Something that generation after generation after generation for 250 years has fought for, and something that we have to continue to fight for going forward, this amazing thing that we call the American dream. Tonight we hear from Ernestine, Alla, Tom, Yasmin, Kevin. I want to say thank you to all of our speakers and to all of the folks in the audience who might be listening, who arrived in Boise, who are sharing your culture, who are sharing your values, who are making Boise the incredible community that it is today. I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for making Boise what it is. I also want to make sure that I say thank you to all of the organizations, the Idaho Office of Refugees, Agency for New Americans, the International Rescue Committee in Boise, Janus Economic Opportunity, and so many others who've worked so hard to assist our neighbors as they arrive in Boise. And one final time, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who are here tonight to listen to their stories. I would encourage you to grow with them and to allow their stories and their experiences to add to your collective stories and your collective experiences of what it means to be an American. And without further ado, please welcome the host of this evening, Holly Beech.
Thank you, Jimmy. That was so well said. I worked at the Idaho Office for Refugees for 5 years, and I grew up here in Idaho and actually didn't know much about resettlement or what that meant or just how enriching it really was culturally, friendship-wise, for jobs. I didn't see it in my day-to-day life. But then I started this job, and I got to truly see it in my day-to-day life. So many amazing relationships, enriching friendships, learning about different holidays, different languages, different cultures, and so much love. And it made me so proud of our state and our community that we have a program like this. You never want resettlement to have to exist. You want people to be able to stay where they are if they want to and be safe, but that's not the reality. So the fact that Idaho gets to step in and be a beacon of hope and a place for renewed opportunities, renewed safety for people, that really means a lot to me as an Idahoan. But just to kind of put the amazing stories you're about to hear in a little bit of context about our state and our city's role in resettlement over the years. So that's what this presentation is, and then I'll hand it over for the speakers and the songs. So Idaho has actually people in Idaho have been welcoming refugees into their homes for longer than 50 years, but our program was officially founded in 1975. Many governors at that time stepped up. There were many refugees coming from the Vietnam region, and different American governors stepped up and said, we'll create a formal resettlement program to help out. So that's when Idaho established ours. Idaho Office for Refugees, we're a nonprofit. We have been the designee to administer this program since 1997. And if you look at recent years, Idaho has been among the top 3 per capita among all states. And this is per capita. That's very important. If you look at sheer numbers, we're not top 3, but per capita, we have been top 3 in terms of number of refugee arrivals who are coming. So I just want to look globally at this. This number to me is crazy. 1 in 66 people have been displaced. And I think about that, I know way more than 66 people. If you think about 1 out of every group like that, the need worldwide is huge for resettlement efforts and to help these situations so that people don't have to leave in the first place. Of those displaced people, 31 million are eligible for refugee status, and less than 1% get resettled by a third country. So it's a very small piece of the solution to help folks, but I think it's a very well-organized, strong program that gives people a permanent solution to have a place to belong. So the term refugee, in the official sense, applies to folks who are displaced because they're persecuted or fear of being persecuted on, as you can see, just basic factors of who they are, what they believe, what their skin color is, maybe their last name, what ethnicity they're a part of. And then an asylee is actually the same criteria, but that's just someone who's already at your border saying, can I have safety here? So a refugee is overseas when they seek safety here. The program is so thorough, what people have to go through after they apply or after they're referred to be a refugee, the amount of interviews, the amount of screenings, medical backgrounds, the amount of agencies involved. It's a very intensive process, and for many people, they wait many, many years, often in a refugee camp, waiting for a time where they'll be welcomed to a third country. So people don't get to choose where they resettle. There are factors brought into it, like do you have family anywhere that you want to rejoin? Is there a community where many other people speak your language? Those kind of considerations are factored in, but someone is not sitting there picking out from a big list of where they want to go. I just want to shout out to the resettlement agencies in Idaho. These are the people that are meeting someone at the airport, helping them learn how to enroll in school, helping them get to their medical appointments and understand how to get into housing, get that first job. These agencies are incredible. They really are that first community and safety net for people when they get here. So in Boise here specifically, so we have resettlement in Twin Falls, and then also in Boise, that's where the communities are where refugees arrive. And since 1975, Boise's welcomed over 30,000 refugees from over 50 countries. And just living here, yeah, thanks, Denise. Yeah, just living here, I feel like it's a great honor. I know that it's, not something they chose, but the fact that we get to know each other, get to share in cultures, it really has enriched my life so much. So refugees do arrive with a permanent pathway to citizenship. So after 5 years, they are eligible to apply and to become U.S. citizens. I wanted to talk a little bit about the history. You're going to hear stories tonight from folks that came from various places, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Uganda. So over the years, we have seen trends. The resettlement program responds to kind of what's happening around the world. So as I mentioned in the 70s, it had to do with refugees coming from the Vietnam region. In the 80s, it was people fleeing oppressive regimes of the Soviet era. And so in the 90s, folks from Ukraine and other former Soviet countries that were facing religious persecution were able to come to the U.S. And then in 2022, when we had more Ukrainians come through due to the war, people that have already been here for decades stepped in. We saw this with Afghanistan too. Folks came decades ago, and then we had this new need, and then the people who are already here really stepped in to help community members that were newer than them. In recent years, our top three, we've had many different countries, but 75% of arrivals have come from Democratic Republic of Congo, Ukraine, and Afghanistan. Currently, if you look at our arrival charts this year, the resettlement program has been suspended federally since January of 2025. They have made an exception for a program for Afrikaners. So right now, if you look at the numbers, the only new refugee arrivals coming into the US are Afrikaner. You can see that arrivals nationwide fluctuates over the years. This is set by the president in consultation with Congress. And Idaho kind of has similar fluctuations due to various events that take place or various policies that get passed. So over the past 5 years, Idaho has welcomed over 4,400 people. These are folks that came in, maybe they resettled first in Dallas and then moved to Boise and got resettlement services. That includes them. So if you look at federal numbers, it's gonna be a little bit lower because they don't double count. Also a lot of Afghans and Ukrainians came in through humanitarian parole and were given resettlement services, so I'm also including them. But they had to figure out a pathway because their resettlement was not a permanent thing. They had to work to adjust status, see if they can find a more permanent solution. Most people arriving are either kids or folks of working age. So this is some trends just from this year, starting in October to the end of April. You can kind of see that we have had arrivals, 107 of the refugee arrivals from South Africa, and then some folks from Afghanistan who worked alongside the US government through the war, so they were able to get a special immigrant visa. And then the rest of the clients are people that came in before that suspension took place and then moved to Idaho. This year's a little different. We have 70% of arrivals in Twin Falls, 30% in Boise. That's completely flipped from what it usually looks like. I just wanted to shout out, so Idaho Office for Refugees, we have many different programs. So if there's any way that you ever wanted to be involved, there's probably something for you that fits what you like to do. Maybe you want to work in a classroom with adults learning English. There's many different ways. Our West Bench Farmers Market tonight is actually their launch of the season over at Spalding Ranch. That's a really great way to interact with different people, farmers, explore different cuisines from around the world. So there's many different ways to connect with this community. And I'm really honored now to introduce, we're gonna start with a song, and her name is Ernestine. She's a high school student at Mountain View High School. She's from Rwanda. She sang at our conference almost 2 years ago now, and I got goosebumps the whole time, and I videoed it. And sometimes now, when I need a pick-me-up, I'll go back and listen to your song. So thank you, Ernestine, and welcome.
My name is Ines. I'm from Rwanda. I'm going to be singing a song called Ruhuka. It's going to be in my language. It's basically going to be talking about how you should be not judging yourself because you're just innocent. Akanwa kawe sako kwitotombera Imana kuko mu kiye gito kazaturi ibyo kugira neza kwayo ijwi ryayo ntaho rihuriye n'ibiguhindisha umushitsi kuko ubwaryo iyo riranguruye ribirimburanwa n'imizi yabyo ndabizi warabashwe n'imisongo uterwa n'umwanzi gusa hari uwanesheje urupfu usibye n'uburibwe ntabwo ari kera ukaririmba indirimbo zo kunesha mu ijwi ry'umunezero humura ntacyo uzira wikwitsira urubanza izera umwuka azabubura imvura ubutayu buzabikirwa garura ibyiringiro byo kubaho ingabo z'ijuru nizakubaho umugabo wazara gutekerezaho kuko ari uzi uburyo waguye azaguhagurutsa mwisunge ijwi ry'umunezero rituruka ku mukiza rituranye n'iry'umubabaro kuko uba mu mutima tera intambwe uryegere riguhindurira ubuzima iri humure rirafatitse ubwo umwami ari ku ngoma ntacyo kuguhangayikisha kizagira icyo gihindura ku mugambi uwakubambiwe humura ntacyo uzira wikwitsira urubanza izera umwuka azabubura imvura ubutayu buzabikirwa. Thank you.
Now we're going to introduce our first speaker. And I do have notes, even though I'm getting to know you very well, Alla. Alla and I first met because my great aunt is neighbors with her mother in Nampa. And so, when the war in Ukraine, most recent one, broke out, my great aunt was telling me about her neighbor and what they're going through. And through that, I got to meet Alla. And now she's a great colleague. So Alla Aguilar is a case manager at Agency for New Americans, one of the resettlement agencies here in Boise. Born and raised in Ukraine, Alla was 25 when she resettled in the U.S. with her young son and her then husband, who was escaping persecution based on his Jewish heritage. Alla had an engineering degree, but started over as a cleaner here in the U.S. while she learned English and made friends. She told me it was weird to ask for help, to get public assistance. It just wasn't really part of anything she ever pictured for her life, but it really helped give her that footing she needed to restart here. She went on to receive her U.S. citizenship and continues to help refugees and immigrants navigate a new system here in Idaho. Welcome, Alla.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to share my story. And so I was asked to talk about what it means to me to become an American. And I would say to be an American means to me to enjoy all the freedoms and rights that this country offers. I was born in a very beautiful city, capital of Ukraine, Kyiv. And at that time, Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. And unlike Americans, Soviet people did not have many rights, if they had any. I would like to share some examples of what kind of rights we didn't have. The first, most important, it's there was no freedom of speech. We were afraid to talk. We had to think, be careful what we're saying, and we couldn't speak up against the government, against the Communist Party. We couldn't speak about our faith or beliefs because a lot of people, like Baptists or Adventists of Seventh Days, they were actually in prison for their faith. Another thing that I would like to tell you is that certain literature was forbidden, and I remember how when we were students and we wanted to read certain books, and they were kind of, you know, somebody was printing them somewhere in the basement, and secretly we would read and we would meet and would share our opinions and we'd discuss it, but we were actually risking to be in jail. Also, people didn't have a private property. Like, we lived in apartments that belonged to the government. Everything belonged to the government. You couldn't move to another place. You cannot sell any house or buy any house. You couldn't even sell your own, like, dress. If I didn't have a dress, I didn't want to have a dress and I wanted to sell it, I had to do it secretly because I couldn't be arrested. So it's kind of weird, but that's what was happening. And I remember that another thing that I really wanted to do, I wanted to see other countries, I wanted to travel around the world, but we didn't have a right to travel. We didn't have a right to leave the country. It was closed. And we had some glimpse somewhere, someone would tell us a little bit something about America, something about European countries, and we all wanted, I remember young people, we all wanted to wear jeans. That was like the most beautiful thing in the world. So I never had jeans. So the dream came true later. And we thought that the most delicious things is gummy bears and bubble gums. Once in a while, we would have those things because sometimes we would have tourists would come from different countries, and the kids would go to the hotels and ask tourists, "Do you have a gum?" And I remember teachers in school would tell us, "Do not do this because they're going to take pictures of you and going to tell you're begging for food." So that was kind of funny. And when I was almost graduating university, I got married, and my then husband's brother was already living in New York. They're Jewish heritage, and Jewish people were very persecuted because of their ethnicity in Soviet Union. So that was my opportunity to travel the world, to come to the United States. It was like my dream come true. And when we came to the United States, the most frustrating thing for me was English language, the language barrier. And I really wanted to integrate as fast as possible. I want to learn the culture. I want to learn the traditions. I want to feel. I wanted to have this sense of belonging, and I wanted to feel home. So that was my goal, and I really started to learn English. I was reading books. I was watching all kinds of shows. 90s, probably you guys remember, like X-Files was one of my favorite. I couldn't understand most of it, but I liked it. I also liked to watch Full House. That was a little bit easier to understand. And what was, I think so, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I like that one too. So it was very funny. So I've learned English, and I always liked English language. And so 5 years passed, and it was time to apply for the citizenship. And I remember the day very, very well. When I became a citizen, it was a very special day. There was a lot of people. We had all those flags, and I remember I had to give up my Ukrainian citizenship, which was fine, because America was my home already. And one of the, you already heard that part of becoming a citizen is an interview. And I would like to share that experience. So I remember sitting in an immigration building and waiting to be called. So finally I was called. I came into this small room, and I see this lady looking very unfriendly and kind of mean. And she actually was a little bit mean. And I was like, oh, she doesn't like me. Oh, maybe she doesn't like immigrants. I don't know. So we had to pass a test, United States history test. And they were like, I don't know, maybe 20-something questions. So I prepared for the test. I study. And normally they would ask, like, I don't know, 5, 6 questions. She asked me, I think so, every question. And I remember was one question, she asked me, when was the Declaration of Independence? And because I was already nervous, because she was very unfriendly, by accident, I gave some different year, and she was like, what? And after many, many questions, I said, oh, no, it's this year. And she said, oh, okay. So then when she was done with it, she was like, I could see she smiled, just say, like she was very impressed that I know the history. So then she kind of probably decided she was not done with me. Are you on welfare? I said, no, I'm not on welfare. Okay. Then English test. Okay, just write, I love my family. I wrote, I love my family, and I knew I'm gonna pass my test. I'm gonna be a citizen, and it happened. And I just want to say, I feel so blessed that I live here in this country, and that I'm trying very hard to be a very good citizen and to do good to the community and to this country, to contribute to this country. And that's why I always like words of JFK when he said, do not ask what this country can do for you, me, or ask what I can do for this country. Thank you.
Well, now we have the honor of introducing Alla's son, Tom, which I thought it was really cool to see the different generational perspectives. Tom was only 2 years old when they moved to the U.S., so he has a completely different story and perspective and experiences from his mom. He looked over me during your talk, and he's like, we did watch Fresh Prince a lot. So Tom, he is an appraiser with the Ada County Assessor and a realtor. His wife, Erin, is here. I learned tonight that we went to the same high school, Skyview High School, but different years, so we didn't know each other. After graduating, Tom worked on farms in Kuna. He attended BYU, Idaho, and then off tracks from college, he came back and would keep farming. So I think that's really great. Tom, thank you so much for being here. We are very excited to hear your story.
Thank you for everyone here coming. Beautiful music. Wow. Really hard to follow up with that. And then, of course, my mom crushed it with her testimony of her American journey. I always find her very inspiring, and yes, she does love her family. I do want to give a little bit of a different perspective. It's a perspective full of gratitude. I did not have to personally suffer as much as what my mom had to go through and the other refugees that we will hear later on tonight. But my struggles were struggles that I feel like the young generations, and to know their kind of perspectives of what they might be confronting could be enlightening. I grew up in this amazing country, and yet I would hear my family's stories of oppression. My mom gave a few examples of those. I luckily had the opportunity almost every summer to go back to Ukraine to visit my grandparents. And so I had what I believe is a unique perspective of the worldview of an American and the worldview of living in Ukraine, visiting that type of culture, and trying to figure out where I'm at and all that. In those summers, and I would hear, late night talks with my mom and my grandparents about my mom comparing her stories of all the things she's going through and hearing how they didn't have to struggle the way they were. I obviously never lived during the times of the Soviet Union. I was barely born when it was all collapsing. And so looking at Ukraine at that time, it didn't seem as bad or as awful as they were explaining, which was amazing. A young country growing, being strong. And so the three main stories I remember them sharing were, I remember my grandma would tell me these long lines in the grocery store. You might have heard similar stories from other people. And in my perspective as a young person, you go to the grocery store and then you ask what kind of bread you want, and you can go and pick that up. Whereas my grandmother would have to wait in line. Long lines out the store, you get there, and then before you know it, there is no more bread. Or if you did get bread, it'll be stale bread. And so it's really hard for me to imagine those kind of stories. I had that sense of gratitude, but I was also trying to figure out where I am in this place of the world. Two other stories that they also shared were, you couldn't really have a second job. You were only allowed one job. My mom gave some great examples of that type of expressive, oppressive regime. And so with no extra second job, whatever you had for expenses is what you're allowed to do. And so if you had any medical problems, if you needed to go to a doctor or see a dentist, it's really hard. You have to wait in a long time for an appointment. And if you actually really wanted anything to get done, you need to bribe the doctor or the dentist. It's kind of hard to do when you have a fixed income, and having a second job is illegal. Bribing, the medical staff, also illegal, but encouraged. And so, you had to do sketchy things, reading a book, like my mom said, trying to get a side gig, being healthy was risky. And so hearing those stories and being in this beautiful country, I really did not know how to move forward. It was a little bit weird. Because again, whenever I would go to the grocery store with my mom, I loved collecting coins on the ground. I will see a penny here, nickel or dime, and every so often, if I'm lucky, I get a quarter. And I'm like, how amazing to being in a country where you can find money in the ground that someone either forgot or were too lazy to pick up because it's just a quarter. I mean, imagine that type of luxury to leave money on the ground. And so I will take advantage of that. And as I was growing up older in school, whether it be in the classroom or the school gym or stadiums, I would have the opportunity to participate by, pledging allegiance to the flag and singing the Star Spangled Banner. However, I kind of dealt with a little bit of an identity crisis, if that hasn't come across yet. What was I really pledging to? Technically, at that time, I wasn't a citizen, I was a resident, and so when I'm pledging to the flag, is it really my country like everyone else in the whole room was? Or was I still a Ukrainian, even though that country felt very distant? That culture felt very distant to me. And so I remember that as I was thinking about it, I would place my hand over my heart, but where was my heart placed? And I would think about that every so often when I would pledge allegiance to the flag and sing that beautiful song. And so as I dealt with that identity crisis, am I really an American? Am I really Ukrainian? Am I somewhere in between or neither? Luckily, there's so many great stories that we can tell and learn here in the U.S. And so there's a storytelling trope called A Child of Two Worlds. You guys can imagine Spock from Star Trek, half alien, half human, and in that TV show, he had a hard time dealing the two worlds lifestyle, being rejected, kind of joining another. Think of in the movie Avatar with Jake Sully, absorbing into an alien culture and trying to balance the two lives. But there's one story in particular that I feel like not only can I relate to, but every single person. It is the story of probably the most American superhero that we can think of, and that is Superman. Like Superman, who left his home world being shattered, I came to the United States when the Soviet Union was falling apart. And so, and like Superman, he grew up in America, grew up with American roots, grew up with American values and morals from a great family. He had a previous name and got a new name. My original name was Yevgeny Genovich Mendikov. It's not that anymore. It is now Tom Kanon. And what's interesting, if you want to, I'm going to shorten the whole name process, but I picked the name Tom, my American side, and then I picked a new last name coming from my grandmother's grandfather, Kanon. And so blending the two worlds together. But going back into learning the story of Superman that inspired me to become a better American. Before he was Superman, he was Clark Kent. Grew up as an American, learning more of these things. But before he embodied the Superman that we all know and can cherish, he learned a little bit about his Kryptonian heritage before donning that suit and saving the world. And so while I don't save the world, I do assessment notices that some people might not be happy with, but we're happy to explain. If you have any questions, you can talk to me afterwards. Anyway, what I find so inspiring about that person of Superman that helped me become a better American is I was trying to find my American roots to plant and grafting in my Ukrainian heritage, the way he grafted in his heritage to be a better American to his fellow Americans. And with that being said, there's this one phrase that I really like, and I think it could be undervalued at times, that's associated with Superman, which is truth, justice, and the American way. And I often pondered, well, what is the American way? And that's what I'm so grateful about having this 250 year anniversary of the United States, because the American way is relatively simple if we think about it. It is the American Constitution and the 3 branches of government. And like Superman, who inspires other superheroes and the American people, he uplifts others. He helps them out. And with the American Constitution and those 3 branches of government, the United States of America has inspired many countries adapting their own type of constitution, having 3 forms of branches in their government, admiring and inspiring others. So does the American government. Now, when we look towards American history, and I love history, it's a bit messy and it's imperfect. But despite America being imperfect and messy, so are the American people, imperfect and messy. But because we have such a great framework of our government, we are allowed to make mistakes and overcome those mistakes. We can have our disputes and learn from them, whereas in places like the former Soviet Union, you really didn't have that option. And so I personally believe that this is a great year to reflect on those American roots that each and every one of us can experience in our lives. It is because of the American Constitution and those 3 branches, that is the American way, to preserve people's rights and their freedoms, regardless of the mistakes we do along the way. And I'm so grateful for each and every one of you guys here, because I see a Superman or a Supergirl here. Each and every one of us can learn to love this country and our neighbors, and as people come in, we can lift them up instead of putting them down. This is an amazing country. And even though I haven't as suffered as many great refugees, being in this country, it's just an amazing experience. Thank you all for being here, and God bless America.
Next up is Yasmin Aguilar. No relation to Alla Aguilar, just happen to have the same last name. Yasmin came to Idaho as a refugee from Afghanistan over 25 years ago. During that time, she has supported other refugees through her work at the Agency for New Americans here in Boise, where she serves as assistant director. Before she was involved with ANA, Yasmin was a physician in a refugee hospital in Pakistan, and later a community development coordinator for Mercy Corps International. She was a participant in the Welcoming Communities Transatlantic Exchange in Germany in 2016 to 2018, and has received several local and international honors over the years for her work championing refugees. Welcome, Yasmin.
Thank you for coming, especially today's very nice weather and first Thursday of the month. So many things happening, but having all of you here and some familiar faces, we really appreciate to hear our stories. And some of you maybe already hear my story, but listen it again. My journey from Hundukush to Satut. As Holly mentioned, I came as a refugee. I was a physician. And why I came to United States? I didn't choose to come to United States. I was searching for safety. After being attacked and kidnapped by Taliban, So my life was in danger, so searching for safety. And you guys already saw the process. I don't want to talk about that. I'm talking about my story. So finally, I got approved to come to United States. Even though I was working with Americans, the journey of becoming a refugee in the United States or resettled in the United States took over 2 years. So I was kidnapped, started, then attacked, and finally I decided, yes, I will go. But my life changed within a week. I came from Finland, where I went through work for Medical and Law Congress, and I came in United Nations building for a meeting, and I get a bag. In that bag was a paper which changed my journey and my life. I came home, highly open, because my life was at risk in Pakistan anytime. It says Boise, Idaho, and I'm like, oh my God, where is Boise, Idaho? Called my American friends. Somebody said ID, Indiana, and stuff, and said, what type of Americans they are? They don't know their geography or what? So, got to New York, which is port of entry. I had 4 bangles, and those bangles went like an hour under the machine, come and go, come and go. Imagine the security on that time in 2000. Just 4 bangles. And I still have it. I don't want to sell it. Gold is expensive now. And where am I? People were rude. I asked to carry my luggage. Nobody wanted to do that because I was used to. I had to carry luggage, go to a motel, given a piece of chicken bloody, wasn't cooked properly, with a can of soda that I never drank soda before. It's not like we didn't have it, I didn't want it. And I'm like, if this is America, oh my God, what will I should wait for? The next morning, United Airlines, a school bus came and took us, brought us to the airport in JFK, says you go to Boise, Idaho. Thanks God it was a direct flight, New York to Boise, 4 hours or over a little bit. They gave me scrambled egg, and I asked them, is this from real egg or powder or a liquid? They said, that's only mom we have, don't ask for so much. Okay, came to Boise, 2 p.m. at the Boise airport. Some of you maybe remember it was a very small airport, meet my case manager. And she brought an interpreter, and I said, I speak the language, so I don't need an interpreter. Interpreter was upset that I'm so proud of myself. And I got the job. The same afternoon, they told me, we will have a vacancy and you will be hired. I was so happy because I was told you cannot work as a doctor. In my mind, 48 hours of travel journey, thinking I will chop onion in McDonald's or clean the floors in a hotel. But again, you lose something to gain another. I always told myself, pinch myself, safety is more important in this time. But I got a job with Agency for New Americans. So the topic today, I will not go about my journey. You guys know the process. What does it mean becoming American? From the first time when I came to Boise, it was so welcoming. I thought I'm American. I never look at my color of hair, my color of skin, and I'm like, I'm American. I'm in America. They gave me the freedom, the opportunity, but also the blessing and opportunity came with challenges, sacrifice, resiliency, and accomplishments. I will share one of my stories. You know, my story is very long. It can be a book. Or you can listen to me for 3-4 days and still will not finish. They told me to concise it, so. I just came, it's my first week. The agency gave me $10 pocket money. I bought a telephone card to communicate with family. I arrived, and of course the taxes there, so a few cents here and there. And I was hosted by another Afghan family because money. You guys hear a lot of misconception around refugees are taking a lot of money and blah, 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 blah. No. My food sum was $86, and it came after a month. Because the rent wasn't affordable for me as a one person and cash assistant, I had to be hosted by another person to find more roommates to get an apartment. On that time, 26 years ago. Imagine now. So I was lost. they told me the bus stop is there, and I went stop on 16 and Jefferson. Nobody's coming. On that time, we didn't have that many people in Boise, Idaho. And I'm waiting. Somebody finally came in the bicycle. Thanks God I spoke the language. Imagine about refugees who don't speak English, how they can be lost. And I went to Greyhound. They direct me, oh, don't get another bus. There is a bus. And I saw buses, and wait. I don't see Boise Avenue. It's my first week, imagine. And then I said, sir, where is the Boise Avenue bus and which number? They said, no, that's Intercity or something, Greyhound. Then they sent me to Poyure. There was a restaurant, ate in Idaho, if you guys remember, and being enough time in Idaho. Then I went there, and the last bus just left. Imagine a woman being kidnapped, attacked, being scared of strangers. And now what to do? I saw Boise Depot from there a little bit. We didn't have those high-rise buildings on that time yet. So I went all the way walking, then go back Federal Way, then take the Boise Avenue thing down. I didn't know that shortcut of Boise Avenue. Then I saw Judd Burger. Combo, this and that, 99 cents. Oh, so nice. I'm so hungry. All day I didn't eat anything. I get a burger. So I went. Denim pant, nice leather jacket with my purse, because I came with the same luggage as I came from Finland. And they said, you want combo? And I said, everything is 99 cents. America? Yes. They said, around $6, and I didn't have money for it. I had $4 something. The reason I came without money, I left for my parents because I will start work here. I was the only person who brought the food to the table there back in Pakistan. And I had tears in my eye, and I promised not to cry. Every time I tell this story, I cry, but I already cried today enough when I practice. So I told sir, I don't want food because I don't have enough money. And in my back of my mind is like that guy would think, what type of person is that person? Maybe she wanted for free, and then came behind me and said, no, I don't want. I went and slept hungry. And that made me who I am today, to take care of our other neighbors who are coming new to this country. How can I do? How can I help them? What resources we should provide them that they are safe and they don't suffer like I suffer. So that was part of my journey. Where are those people who say we take all the money? It wasn't. I work since I arrived until now. I haven't been any day without a job. I work hard, and my goal is to support people. The journey of becoming American is not just only the right. The right comes with responsibility and accountability. The citizenship is not for me just a piece of paper, citizenship certificate, but also it comes with responsibility and accountability to defend this country, who gave me peace, safety. And as Alla mentioned, we have to go through the whole background check and test, even though we are background check. Every time, background check. So the test came, and I went, passed the exam, and I got my citizenship. You have to study, the history of United States. English wasn't a problem for me, the same English as I'm talking, the same now. So I got my citizenship. It was a honor and a pride. Why? Because all of us, we lose our identity when we come to a new place. We are just a refugee. You are called a refugee from Afghanistan. Even though I'm a US citizen, people say, oh, a former refugee from Afghanistan. But I regain with a piece of paper that has my name and a picture, US citizen. So getting that passport, I go back when I was in Finland. When the conference finished, there were 700 participants. There were huge 2 ferries to take us a tour to Sweden. I wasn't, the only one who wasn't allowed was me, because my passport was from Afghanistan. And I was like, I never choose a place to be born, but you are always punished by something you never choose. And I was crying, sitting on the deck there. Everybody went, and I said, one day I will come back and take this ferry. So with that passport, I can now freely travel, but also not just the travel. Every time I'm proud to say I'm American, no matter what political situation is, or whatever is happening, we all know how long the night is, the day will come, and the truth will come always. I support the Constitution. I am proud to call myself American, along with keeping my Afghan heritage. With that citizenship paper, one of my coworkers, he never had, he said, an identity. That passport gave him an identity, and it's for all of us, not just for me. That piece of passport put me on different line than I was in that line before. So many of you take for granted the US passport, but for many of us who become a US citizen and get that passport, that's a big deal. I always told people that I became self-sufficient so fast. American dream, car, house, and a spouse. And I didn't want to include in my story, but Alla told me, please tell that part, so I'm sharing that with you. I'm so proud to call my husband Luis here. He's there. Show yourself. I met him at the first week in Boise, at Boise State University, because the family who hosted me, they were going to English class. And then I said, what to do in their house alone? So I went there, make the story short. I asked the teacher, can we do introduction? Because you just start teaching. I'm a new person in the class. And he turned his face and said, by the way, my name is Luis and I'm single. And I turned my face back and I said, who cares? And we are married for the last 25 years. And I got my car in the first 2 months. I bought a house in the 3rd month, and I got married on the 6th month. So much rumors, not just by the refugee community, but by Americans too. Maybe she's pregnant, maybe she's pregnant. I'm, until now, never got pregnant. But I have an adopted son who is sitting here, who was evacuated from Afghanistan. I adopted him, but not in papers, because I don't want he get my stuff. So. So I'm blessed to have people around me and welcoming community. Who I am today, standing in front of you, talking, and the accomplishments I got throughout these 25, 26 years is because of this welcoming community in Boise. Every person in Boise contributed to success of our program. Not just me, but others. Like buying a house, I'm on a street, a very nice, friendly person telling me, what do you do? Do you want to buy a house? And I'm like, can I buy a house? 3rd month, can you believe it? In Afghanistan, I cannot achieve that. As a woman, even if I have money, it should be on a man's name. Then the agency gave me a car, even though it was donated by somebody from Boise, Idaho. And smashed passenger door, very old Subaru, but I was so happy that I have a car, and it was a stick shift. Who taught me how to drive? My classmate, who is my husband for the last 25 years now. He took me to Idaho City on the ice to teach me. Can you believe it? And then after Meridian, I got another house, then I bought the last house. And I'm so proud to be part of this community, and I'm so proud to have all of you part of my journey. Even when you listen, maybe you dream about. I didn't want to talk about all the challenges I had, but I want to talk about the accomplishment. The accomplishment all came, or I accomplished everything because of you guys who support me, the community of Boise, and some of you are here, and you know me, and I know you guys are in my heart, and you did a lot, not just for me, but all other new Americans. And you helped me to integrate in the larger society, and still, no matter what people tell me, go back to Mexico, go back here, you're this, you're a bad Muslim, you're this and that, whatever it is, I'm proud, and I call myself American because United States gave me the opportunity and safety, and Boise gave me a place to call home. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.
So modest, she didn't talk about what an amazing cook she is, too. Thank you so much for sharing. We have one more storyteller tonight. Really cool guy. I just got to know him recently because he started being active in our Refugee Speakers Bureau, and I'm just so impressed, and it's such an honor and a delight to get to know Kevin Irankunda. Also goes by Ezra, but Kevin has lived in Idaho since 2021 and is studying electrical engineering at Boise State. He was born and raised in Uganda after his family relocated there from the Democratic Republic of Congo. When he was 18 years old, his family resettled in Idaho, where Kevin completed high school and participated in the College Bound program with One Refugee, which helped him start his college career at CWI. Along with being a full-time student, Kevin is a translator at a health clinic and founder of HasNet, a nonprofit that seeks to build lasting change for vulnerable communities in Idaho and Uganda. Welcome, Kevin.
You guys are not gonna believe how excited I was about this event. I wanna express my sincere appreciation to the people who made this possible, and to you guys who were able to spare your time and come to listen to these amazing stories. We've heard some amazing stories from my peer speakers, and their experience remind us that every refugee journey is unique. I've seen some people that think, whenever they think of a refugee or hear of the word a refugee, they often imagine someone who has lost everything, someone who is starting from zero. But I want to tell you, that is not true. I did not start from zero. I started with everything because I had survived. You see, I was born and raised in a refugee camp. Not just for a short time, but this was my home, the only home I ever known. Imagine growing up in a place where the question is never, what do I want to be when I grow up? But the question is simply, how do we get through today? Resources were scarce, opportunities were limited, and the future felt uncertain in the ways that are hard to put in words. But here's what most people don't always see about these places. They are full of life. They are full of people who love their families, who love their language, who hold onto their culture like it is something precious, because it is. I grew up surrounded by people who knew how to take care of each other, who knew that your identity was not determined by your circumstances, who knew how to find joy in little things. But even in those environments, with everything that we lacked, life taught me things. Life taught me how to adapt, how to be resourceful, and how to keep going, even when the odds were not in my favor. Those lessons became part of me long ago before I even came to the United States. I remember the first moment I knew that I was going to be resettled to the United States. I did not feel the same way you might expect. It was not a simple feeling of happiness or relief. It was more complicated than that. Of course, there was excitement. The United States, new beginning and possibilities I had never imagined. But there was also fear, like real fear, because everything I knew, my community, my home, my friends, and the smells and sounds of a place I called home was about to be left behind. There was also grief, because starting over, even if you lead somewhere better, it still means saying goodbye. I had dreams, though. I dreamed of going to school without limits, of having a future that I could actually plan for, of someday standing somewhere, maybe like here, and telling my story. And I also had worries. Would they accept me? Would I ever feel like I belong there? Will I be able to learn the language? So I carried all those things, the fear, the excitement, the grief, the worries, and the dreams onto the plane, and I carried something else too, hope. Hope that I could learn, hope that I could grow, and hope that I could be something more. And when I finally got here, back in 2021, that hope was immediately tested. Everything was unfamiliar. The food was different. The way people interacted was different. The language that I studied back home was absolutely different. And even silence felt different, quieter and more distant than what I was used to. I remember my first time going to school here in the United States and feeling completely invisible. And this was not because people were unkind. This was because I didn't have the words to make myself seen yet. You see, this was the most challenging part of starting over in a new country for me. It's not that things were difficult. It's just that I didn't have the words to make myself seen. I had a whole life behind me, a whole story, a whole identity, and it wasn't even easy for me to just share it with anyone. I felt like a person without a voice. There were moments I sat alone and questioned myself. Did I make a mistake? Is this really where I belong? And there were also moments I missed home so deep that it hurt. Not just the place, but the feeling of being understood without having to explain myself. But I knew deep down that I have not come this far to give up. Becoming an American is not something that happens in a single moment. It is a process. It happens the first time someone believes in you. The first time you raised your hand in class, the first time you realized that your voice matters. What changed everything for me was not a single event. It was people. It was a teacher who stayed after class, not because it was required, but because they saw that I was trying. It was a teacher who slowed down and said, "You are doing better than you think." It was a mentor who sat down with me and not only helped me understand the education system, but how everything works here. Who treated me as not a refugee to be helped, but as someone with a potential to be developed. It was the community members who welcomed my family, who showed up, who made space and said without words, "You belong here." These people did not just help me survive the transition. They helped me believe that I had something to contribute, that my presence here was not just acceptable, but it was valuable. And I want to say directly to anyone in this room who has ever been that kind of person to someone else, that you may never fully understand the impact of what you did, but I am standing here tonight because of people like you. Slowly and slow, I began to find my voice. I began to feel like I belong here, not as someone who came as a refugee, but as someone who was becoming part of something. And as I found my place here, I also learned something important about identity. Becoming an American does not mean becoming someone else. I am proud of where I came from, I am proud of my language, and I am proud of my community's tradition. These things are not a burden that I carry. They are a foundation that I stand on. I stayed connected to my heritage through the language I speak with my family, the food that we cook, and the stories that we tell. Stories that remind us who we are and where we came from. And I've come to understand that this is not a contradiction. I do not have to choose between my future and my heritage. I do not have to be less of one to be more of the other. I am both, and both makes me strong. America has always been a place where people bring who they are and add it to something larger. That is not a weakness in the American story. That is the American story. And through all this life, the camp, the journey, the first hard years, the slow process of building life here in the United States, I have learned something that I want to share with you. I have learned the most challenging experiences that you encounter in your life do not have to define your limits. They can define your strength. I have learned that belonging is not something that was given to me. It is something that I built through persistence, through showing up, and through choosing to contribute even when it's difficult. I have learned that the people who helped me were not doing me a favor. They were investing in something real. That when I finally make it, when I finally find my footing, I carried a huge responsibility to turn back around and do the same thing for someone else. That is the cycle that makes communities strong. And that is what actually we the people means in practice. So when people say refugees start from nothing, I respectfully disagree with that. We come with knowledge, strength, perspectives, and ready to rebuild. And as for my dreams, they are larger than when I just got here. I dream of being the kind of person my younger self needed to see, so that the next kid or person who is starting over in a new country can maybe look up to me and be like, that can be me. I dream of the future where my story is not just remarkable, but it is simply one of the many. One thread in the larger fabric of what this country continues to become. Because we the people is not finished. It is still being written, and I intend to be part of writing it. I did not start from nothing. I started with hope, resilience, and the determination to build a better future. Becoming an American does not mean leaving your past behind. It's about building on it. Thank you.
Thank you all to our speakers. Amazing perspectives shared tonight. I know it will stick with me forever in how I see the world and how I see being an American. Thank you so much for the courage and your generosity in sharing with us. I believe I'm welcoming Jennifer back up on stage. Thank you for joining the conversation. For more information on how to be involved with refugee resettlement, please visit idahorefugees.org. Mosaics is produced by the Idaho Office for Refugees with grant support from the M.J. Murdoch Charitable Trust. Music by the Afrosonics. Production in partnership with SB Studios.